Thank you. On April 30th, 1970, a visibly nervous Richard Nixon went on television to announce the U.S. invasion of Cambodia, a major escalation of the war in Southeast Asia. In response, demonstrations erupted on college campuses all across the country. At Kent State, a series of spontaneous actions took place, during which time the ROTC building was torched in an action that reeked of the work of agent provocateurs. Using this incident as a pretext, Governor James Rhodes ordered the Ohio National Guard onto the campus. When asked about the protesters, he stated, quote, "We're going to eradicate the problem. We're not going to treat the symptoms. We will use whatever force is necessary to drive them out of Kent," end quote. Rhodes was echoing Nixon, who had called student bums. These inflammatory remarks provided a political framework for the subsequent events. It was all worked out ahead of time. On May 4th, in protest of the escalation of the war and the military occupation of our campus, we peacefully gathered on the Commons. The Guard ordered us to disperse, and when we refused to surrender our right to assemble, they began a massive barrage of tear gas, and the demonstration was broken up. We ran over Blanket Hill, pursued by a line of soldiers with fixed bayonets. The Guardsmen marched to a practice field where they knelt and aimed their weapons at scattered students. Then the soldiers stood and began to retrace their route back to the Commons. But at the top of the hill, they turned simultaneously and fired. All this is well documented in photos of the events. 67 shots in 13 seconds left the campus strewn with dead and wounded. The victims were unarmed and far from the troops. Allison Krauss was 330 feet away from the nearest garden when she was fatally gunned down. My friend, Sandy Scheuer, was 390 feet away, walking to class when she was shot in the neck and killed. Robbie Stamps was almost 500 feet away when he was wounded. 4 students lay dead: Allison Krauss, Bill Schroeder, Sandy Scheuer, and Jeffrey Miller. 9 others were wounded. Dean Kaler was paralyzed from the waist down. The bloodshed was not over. 10 days later, on May 14th, cops fired a deadly barrage of over 450 bullets into a women's dormitory at Jackson State University in Mississippi. That left another 2 students dead. There's no accurate count on the number of wounded, at least 12, but many black students avoided going to the hospital fearing arrest. Because Jackson had a long and bloody history of racist violence, including vitriolic racist mob mobilizations in 1962, protesting the enrollment of James Meredith at the University of Mississippi, and the gunning down of Medgar Evers in 1963. In fact, just 3 days prior to the shootings at Jackson, in Augusta, Georgia, the burned and mutilated body of an incarcerated 16-year-old retarded black youth, Charles Oatman, was dumped by his jailers at a local hospital, sparking a rebellion that left 6 black men dead, all shot in the back. Despite that background, on May 14th, Jackson students stood strong to protest the war and racism. The murdered Jackson students were Philip Gibbs and James Earl Green. Gibbs was the son of a sharecropper, a member of the Civil Rights Council and active in his church. He'd recently married his high school sweetheart and had an 11-month-old son. James Earl Green was a 17-year-old senior in high school passing through campus on his way home from work. One of 8 children, son of a laborer, a good student. He worked bagging groceries and gave his wages to his mother at the end of each week. These young lives were snuffed out as an example to others to stop the protests, but Nixon had greatly misjudged the mood of the country. Instead of curbing the protests, he provoked a national strike by millions of students. For every one of our martyrs, tens of thousands took their place. Over 450 campuses were occupied, becoming the site of mass meetings of thousands of students, learning, discussing, and organizing to reach out beyond the campus and build the anti-war movement. The strike provided significant impetus for developing forces that were critical in bringing the war to an end. The Chicano movement mobilized hundreds of thousands of Latino workers throughout the country, saying, "Raza si, guerra no." It was during the August 29, 1970 Chicano moratorium that Ruben Salazar, a well-known journalist, was killed while dining after the demonstration. National Student Strike also provided support for the deepening of the anti-war movement within the Army itself. In one of the greatest and most inspiring chapters of the history of the working class of this country, active duty GIs self-organized a movement that made it impossible for the U.S. to continue the war. That image behind me is based on a banner that was carried on a demonstration of active duty GIs outside Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas. You can get a good feel for this movement by watching Sir No Sir, the movie by David Zeiger. Well, May 4th, 2010 marked the 40th anniversary of the massacres at Kent and Jackson. At Kent, a truth tribunal was established by family members, and it's being broadcast on Michael Moore's website. It's been 4 decades, yet the truth lies buried under government lies and misinformation. And there's another cover-up that has to be addressed, and that is the disappearance of the mass anti-war movement and the civil rights movement that led up to the events of May 4th and May 14th. The image that you see there is based on a photo of this demonstration of Kent students who marched by the thousands during the April 29th, 1969 national moratorium against the war. This is a photo of Allison Krauss, one of the students who held up that banner and who helped to build that demonstration, collecting funds to pay for it. Sandy Scheuer, who's painted there, participated in SMC mobilizations. Yet none of these students are ever identified as being anti-war activists. You will not find this picture on the web or even on the commemoration sites. You will find no mention of the Student Mobilization Committee or the Kent Committee Against the War or the other anti-war organizations. If you Google Jackson State Massacre, you will get 54 references. If you Google Britney Spears, you will get over 73 million references. Why are we written out of history? Because we organized and came to conferences and held informational meetings and walked picket lines and fought for civil liberties and carried on all the activities that you are involved in, creating a living movement. More than anything else, that is what Washington fears. And they will use every ideological weapon and every dirty trick to stop people like you from building a framework that will provide a place for millions of people to express their opposition to the war. They want us to think we're weak and helpless, that we can't change the world. And when they cannot trick you or buy you, they will jail you or kill you. And we are taking this time to honor some of those who've paid the ultimate price for human liberation. Many came before them. There have been others since. Carlo Giuliani, Ben Linder, brave women like Karen Silkwood and Rachel Corrie. A spirit of rebellion and outrage and injustice motivated all of them, and that spirit lives. And that's what we called this commemorative banner. Jerry Butler, fellow artist who was a student at Jackson State could not be here. He and I, with the help of student volunteers, painted this banner in stolen hours between May 4th and May 14th. We have chosen to dedicate this mural to the latest of those who stand in the tradition of the martyrs of Kent and Jackson, to activists that left the comfort of their own homes to face an uncertain future because they believe that there should be no borders or walls between human beings. We dedicate this mural to the 9 brave activists of the Freedom Flotilla who stood up to the Israeli-U.S. war machine and said to the world, we will never turn our backs to the Palestinian people. Their spirit lives. The spirit of these martyrs lives on. The next boats are being readied. The assault on the Freedom Flotilla was a message to you and people like you. And last week, Barack Obama reiterated that message when Lynn Stewart was sentenced to life in prison. The message is, if you dare to defend your Arab or Iranian or Korean or Cuban sisters and brothers, then you face victimization. Well, we have a message for you, Obama, a message for you and Schwarzenegger and Arpaio and Glenn Beck and all the sleazy right-wing pundits and know-nothing racist teabaggers and cowardly legislators and bankers and corporate executives and all the rest of the parasites that profit from the misery of the world's people. The American people's identification with the oppressed of this world grows deeper every day. We are meeting here to renew and strengthen our fight to end the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan and of Palestine, and nothing will turn us around. You can put some of us in jail with Lynn Stewart and Mumia Abu-Jamal and the Cuban Five and Leonard Peltier, but we'll be in damn good company. Their fighting spirit lives on, and they nourish us. And we didn't come here because we plan to grovel at the feet of lying politicians. We didn't come here to support some supposed good war. There are no good wars. We're here because the time has come to sweep away those politicians and claim the resources that the insatiable military holds hostage, wealth that the working people of this country produced. The largest anti-war demonstration in history was not in the 1970s, but in the February leading up to the U.S. invasion of Iraq. The deep-seated opposition to the war has not gone away. It lies beneath the surface, ready to boil over. And when it does, it will be the anti-war movement and the immigrant rights movement and the people who have been foreclosed on and the people of the Gulf and everyone else who has been betrayed by false promises, which is basically everybody else. The mural we are dedicating is just a symbol. It's a little bit of where we came from. It's 40 feet long to represent the 40 years since the massacre. The real memorial to the martyrs of Kent and Jackson is sitting right in front of me. The living movement that carries on the tradition of the fight for peace and justice. We need a living banner that is not 40 feet long, but that stretches to every corner of the globe. A great living mural, a human chain linked in solidarity that puts an end to the era of human history where workers slaughter each other for the profits of a handful of wealthy. We need an international struggle, a global intifada that opens the road to power, because this is not 1970, it's 2010, and in 2010, human solidarity is the only force on earth that can stop the destruction of this planet. That is what is at stake in our fight. Our spirit, the spirit of solidarity that animated the martyrs of Kent and Jackson, is stronger than corporate greed. That is the lesson of history. We will fight for peace. We will fight for power, and we will win. Thank you.